Hey everybody, welcome to my final review for Samurai Spirit by Funforge. Now if you missed my tutorial video and my sample gameplay video, I'm going to go ahead and insert a quick clip here that's going to show you a quick overview of exactly how the game plays. Now if you watch the other two videos, I'm going to insert a little quick timestamp for you in the YouTube video comments itself. Click on timestamp and you move directly to the full review itself. Hey everybody, welcome to another off-the-shelf board game review. This week we're going to be looking at Samurai Spirit. This is a cooperative game for 1 to 7 players based off the classic Kurosawa film, Seven Samurai. In Samurai Spirits, the players are going to be controlling samurai heroes who have pledged themselves to protecting this village, including its villagers and the farmsteads, from these horrible raiders who are trying to burn this village and kidnap all the people, much in the spirit of the classic Kurosawa film. Every one of these brave samurai are going to have to fight to the death and try to contend with bandits, their lieutenants, and finally, if they make it that far, even their bosses. These mighty samurai are going to have their hands full trying to protect themselves, trying to protect the farmsteads, and even finally trying to protect the villagers from being kidnapped by these horrible, horrible raiders. Our heroes will have to contend with suffering wounds. They'll have to contend with burning down the barricades that protect the village. And if all the barricades get burned down, even the farms themselves will be completely destroyed. Our heroes will also have to contend with bad guys who are going to infiltrate their own warriors, their own brigands, into the village, who will also potentially cause more damage and burn down more buildings and more barricades if they're allowed to escape. Fortunately, our heroes are not ordinary samurai. They have powers they can use to support their own allies, powers they can use to support themselves, and eventually, if they manage to take enough damage, they can even summon their spirit totems to protect them and help keep this village safe. Can our heroes survive 3 waves of bandits coming against this village without suffering too many wounds, without the villages and all the villagers themselves being kidnapped and removed from the village? Survive 3 waves, you win. Lose the village, lose a samurai, you lose. That is Samurai Spirits. When it comes to themes, one of the themes that really always grabs me is an Asian theme in any kind of board game or even video games. I've always loved Asian themes. I appreciate the history of the Asian culture, everything they've done through their history, even their fantasy history and everything like that. I've always enjoyed it. Matter of fact, as a little kid, my brother and I used to go to a local video store that had tons and tons of martial art videos, and we used to rent dozens of those videos every single week and watch them because we had a lot of fun doing it. It's just something we really, really love to do. So it should go without saying that anytime I hear about a new board game coming out that has an Asian theme, it's going to instantly grab my attention. If you throw in a really well-known designer, especially a designer who has yet to bring out a game that I have not liked, like Antoine Bauza, mention Asian theme, mention a designer I can really appreciate, and you pretty much got my attention, and you pretty much almost got my money, especially when I found the game at a store for only $20. So needless to say, I bought the game and brought it home, tore into it, immediately set up the game, read the rules really quickly, sat down, taught myself how to play the game with 2 samurai, pulled out the deck, grabbed all 14 of the raider cards I had to deal with, went through all 14 of those raider cards, and found the game to be an absolute pushover. The very first time I played this game, I had no problems. And I sat back and thought to myself, well, this is really strange. I heard many people say that this is pretty much, in a way, almost a spiritual successor to Antoine Bauza's game Ghost Stories, and the fact that it's supposed to be a very, very challenging game. So I went through the first time with 2 samurai, went through the first deck and said, wow, that was pretty much a pushover, no problem. So what did I do? Grabbed another hand of cards, 14 more raiders, went through it, and played through the game. And the second time, I barely even made it to the second round of the game because I was totally obliterated just by how much my 2 samurai were overwhelmed and completely destroyed by the board game. So what did I do? I set the game up again, had a good easy win, had a good really tough loss, so I said, what the heck, we're going to go for it again. So I grabbed some more cards, grabbed 14 more raider cards, and went through them the first round, and at the end of the very first round, I lost 2 villagers. And I thought, wow, that was even more challenging than the last game I played. And then I went through another round, didn't even make it through because I lost my 1 villager who had remaining. And I completely lost the game before I even went through the total second round or got into the third round. And I said, wow, maybe this game is really challenging. I pulled out all the cards I used to go through that hand, and I noticed that only one single card in the entire 14 raiders, including the lieutenants I went through, had one doll. That game, no matter how I had played it, was impossible to win. So after my third play of the game, I went through and noticed that it was pretty much an impossible victory for me, which I thought was very strange, especially from a designer who is very well known, at least to me, a designer whose games I have quite a few of, and I really enjoy. So what do? What I do is what most board game geeks do. We go to boardgamegeek.com, we start looking at the websites and see if there's any FAQs available, and I come to find out that the very first edition of the rules already has a correction to it telling you that if you play the game with only 2 players, you need to change the rules, you need to change the setup. And I read those rules and I really didn't like them because it almost seemed like a band-aid, which made me realize something. This is a game that's fallen victim to design bloat. Now, design bloat is a very highly technical term that's been around for at least 15 seconds, possibly even 20 seconds by now. That basically means that somebody sat down after having a couple 6-packs of Guinness and said, this game is awesome, let's add in more players. Now you can see design bloat happen occasionally out there, and even occasionally you'll see designers come on the website, such as Board Game Geek, and comment about how their game has been semi-afflicted by design bloat in this aspect by adding more players to a game, or changing the player counts in an attempt to try to get the game to be enjoyable at more player counts. Now some designers, and I won't drop any names, but somebody's name is similar to or rhymes with Richard Lanius, has even been quoted as saying something along the lines of his game had an original player count, and then somebody asked him if he'd have more players, and he said, sure, what the heck, add in more players, but then he even said himself that he didn't think it played best with those extra players, but he did it anyways just to add the extra player count, and I think that's exactly what happened with the game of Samurai Spirit. Now, this isn't absolutely necessarily a bad thing, especially in this situation where it is a cooperative game where we can very easily fix the situation. But sometimes you can see in even other games by the same designer, such as Seven Wonders, they say on the box you can play the game from 2 to 7 players, but if you want to have a 2-player game, what do you need to do? Well, you need to add in a dummy player, which effectively means you're playing a 3-player game, except that 3rd player is just being shared between both the players. It's not really a 2-player game. They added in a band-aid to make it play with 2 players. And that's exactly what they've done with Samurai Spirit in a way, because after I realized what is happening here and I gave the game a couple more chances, and instead of playing the game with only 2 samurai, I started playing the game with 4 samurai, which made the game better. I added in a 5th samurai. I had even more fun with the game, and then I went really crazy and played a 7 samurai game and said, you know what, I'm actually having fun with the game. Now it's time to invite some friends over and see what they also think about the game, because these video reviews are never just about my opinion. They're also about the opinions of everybody I play the game with, because I'm not always right when it comes to my opinions, but at least in this aspect, I think I am. Now, to understand exactly what I'm ranting about here, so you don't think I'm a stark raving lunatic who has no idea exactly what I'm talking about, because what the heck is the difference between 2 samurai and all 7 samurai in the game? Well, I'll show you exactly what the heck the difference is. If you watched my tutorial video, or even my gameplay video, or even the intro where I showed you exactly how the game plays, you're going to see that every one of your samurai needs to have 1 doll, 1 house, and they also should at least have the hat to prevent them from taking damage. Now, the hat and the house is not a big deal because you have 6 houses. You can actually afford to take the extra house losses or the farmstead losses, and each one of our samurai can also take 4 points of damage before all the players lose. So technically, the hats aren't as big of a deal either. But no matter how many players you have in the game, you only have 3 dolls or 3 villagers you need to save to win the game or prevent yourself from losing. Here's the problem. There's only 18 of these cards in the level 1 through level 4 raiders who have a doll on them. There's 63 cards here. Now, I don't have to do the math for you, but you need to have 14 cards to play with 2 samurai. You have 63 cards to choose from, only 18 of them can have a doll. You can do the quick math and figure out that it's highly possible for you to play the game without a single doll. And remember, if you lose all 3 of your dolls or your villagers, whatever you want to call them, you lose, making it an impossible to win game. That right there went and showed me that this game was never really designed to play with exactly 2 samurais, which again wasn't really a bad thing because I did give the game more chances to finally figure out that the game does play much better with more samurai. The game gets more challenging, more decisions, and I'll show you exactly how that works. This is why I think the game plays better with more samurai. First of all, the more samurai you add into the game, the more of these support tokens you also get to add into the game, which means there's a higher chance that the support tokens you actually need are going to be available for your other samurai to use to help assist your samurais when they need it. If you have a 2 samurai game, yes, there are some additional rules that says that all 5 of the support tokens that aren't currently in the game are going to be one-use tokens. You can use each one of them one time throughout the game, ensuring that you at least get access to those support tokens. But if you have a 3 samurai game, you don't get that little helper for it. You only get the 3 assist tokens for those 3 samurai in the game, and the other 4 samurai who aren't in their game and their assist tokens aren't available to you, which means that you're less likely to do a support action with your samurai because you're less likely to have the support tokens and the support abilities you have, and you're more likely to limit your decisions to just fighting, defending, and your combat line. So to me, right there, that also shows that the game is definitely meant to play with more samurai. Also, the more samurai you add in the game, the more cards you're going to add in the game, the more variety you're going to add in the game, and the less likely the chances are you're going to have one of those very, very bad draws that isn't going to have enough of the dolls or the villager symbols to make sure you can even have a winnable game. Once you get to about 4 samurai, the chances of you having not enough dolls in your raider deck is extremely slim, whereas opposed if you only have 2 samurai in the game, the chance out of drawing only 14 cards and only 1 or even 0 of those cards having the doll or the villager symbol for your defense line is really, really increased. So enough about this ranting. Why did I bring out this huge tirade that probably ran close to 10 minutes now? The reason why I did this is because I actually think Samurai Spirits is a really good, very challenging solo game or even a group cooperative game. I brought all these points out because I don't want somebody to have the same experience I did the very first times I played this game and think that this is a horribly broken game, and I hate using that term, but any game that is impossible to win as a cooperative game, yes, you can use the term broken because the game is impossible to win if you get a bad starting hand, and to me that is defective. So my entire point here is that if you played Samurai Spirits and you didn't enjoy Samurai Spirits, look over the reasons why I gave while you possibly may not have enjoyed it, see if those were the issues you had, give the game one more try and play with more samurais and see if that changes your opinion of the game. Now, if you already like Samurai Spirits a lot, you've already played a lot, and you've played with various player accounts, and you haven't had the problems I've encountered, then hey, congratulations. You're enjoying a game that is very, very good, that's been designed very well, and like Antoine Bauza's other very famous ghost stories, this game can be extremely challenging and force you to make some very, very tough decisions, which is a hallmark of a very good game. Add into the fact that this game is not expensive. It retails for $30. I got it actually in a store for only $20. And one more thing that I want to comment on that I think is very fantastic, they actually use a very small box for this game, which has a small blueprint. And I think a certain game company, Fantasy Flight Games, not to drop names, Fantasy Flight Games, can learn a thing or two about actually having a smaller box when you don't have a lot of components like 2 decks of cards and bringing out a Ticket to Ride size box for the game. My game shelves don't have the room for it, so I want to thank FunForge for at least having the decency to have a smaller box with a smaller blueprint, which, you know, may be a financial choice for them because everybody wants big game boxes, so their games have a big retail shelf space. But FunForge, thank you for making the right decision there because my board game shelves appreciate it. And on top of that, for $20, you're actually getting a really, really fantastic board game value here. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm being overly negative towards the game because it may seem like I am being negative, but they're very important points I need to make before I get into the really good stuff here. Now, the good stuff here is, first of all, the game is highly thematic. The game is obviously inspired by the classic Kurosawa film, Seven Samurai, and they've done a great job of bringing that theme into a very small, very compact game that doesn't cost a lot of money. This game is $20 online, $30 in the store. It's a really decent deal for the quality and even for the gameplay you're getting. And again, it does match the theme of the film extremely well. Some samurai who are completely outnumbered by a whole bunch of raiders who are trying to take over this village and ruin everybody's day. They did a fantastic job on that aspect. Plus, there's a lot of actual strategy in this game, and you're going to learn that the more times you play this game. It's not just as simple as just making very small, non-important decisions all the time, because you're going to learn that your decisions are actually very important in this game, and it's going to become more apparent the more times you play. Even some simple decisions such as which samurai are sitting next to each other can make a huge, huge difference. For example, you have the samurai Heihachi. He has the ability that he can pass along any even number card to any samurai to his right or any samurai to his left. Well, common sense would make you think that you put Gorobai right next to him. These are great samurai just to have next to each other, even in the player order, because every time Heihachi gets a card that's even that he doesn't want and sees that Gorobai may need it, you can pass it over, making just that very simple decision of where everybody's sitting already a really important decision when you play the game. Every time I do a review for a board game, there's always two things that are very important for me to cover: family friendliness and optimal player count. Now, I think you've already gotten my opinion on the optimal player count for this game. I think I harped on it enough in my video introduction and helped to explain exactly why I felt those opinions. And if you missed the point, I think the game plays best with at least 4 samurai, which doesn't really affect how many players you have playing the game. It just means that if you're going to play the game, you want to have at least 4 samurai for at least the best amount of choices, the best amount of variety, and for me, the best way to play the game is a minimum 4 samurai. Whether that's you playing alone, playing a solo game, or that's 2 people playing together where each person plays 1 or 2 samurai apiece, it's still a great game that way. And not only that, the game scales very, very well all the way up to 7 players. And matter of fact, that's where the game gets really fantastic, because you're going to notice you're starting to use the support actions a lot more, because you're encountering a lot more of these raiders, and they're going to start doing a lot more damage to you, and you're going to start noticing that your decisions are less, almost, I hate to say the word automatic, but in the lower player count games, the decisions seem a little bit more automatic, whereas the higher player count games, your decisions are less automatic, and what you need to decide to do, whether you need to take the extra wounds in the hopes that you get your more powerful ki ability, or whatever you need to do, it seems like the more samurai you add, the more important your decisions also become in the game. So this game becomes better with more samurai, with one slight caveat to it, that since this is a cooperative game, every player is going to control 1 or possibly 2 samurai, depending on how you're going to play the game. The game doesn't offer you any way to figure out what you want to do on your turn, because you basically need to wait and draw your card and figure out what you want to do on your turn. So there's not many decisions you can make when it's not your turn, except you can interact with the other players, especially the player who's taking their turn right now, and make suggestions such as, okay, if you do this, I can do that, they can do this, they can do this, and maybe we're going to get to this round. So you do get a good amount of group decisions making, but that does also mean that this game can fall a little bit prey to the alpha gamer mentality, the person who's going to basically dominate the game and tell everybody else what to do. Now, I have a very simple solution to that kind of player. You just have a taser on hand. Every time they open their mouth, you hit them with a taser. Okay, not really, but, you know, have a talk with the player if you happen to have that kind of player at the table, and tell them, hey, let the other players make their decision, and then offer advice. Don't tell everybody what to do. Now, when it comes to family friendliness, I think this game has a lot of family friendliness potential for it, especially with 4 different difficulty levels. The fact that you have multiple different samurai who have different abilities that you can bring to the table, whether they're more simplistic abilities like the ability to draw 2 cards, or more advanced abilities where, for example, you can give resistance to another player. It's not that difficult for a younger player to understand this game, and especially since it's a cooperative game, that means that parents can help give suggestions to their children, making this a fantastic game for families to play together. And if you drop the difficulty level, you can kind of help ensure that you're going to win the game as a family. And not only that, as a family game, since this game does play up to 7 players, it means even larger families can have a heck of a lot of fun with this game. I would rate this game very highly on the family friendliness level. Say anybody who's got a family full of kids, I'd say at least 7, possibly 8 years or older, can have a heck of a lot of fun with this game, especially since the images are not graphic. They're rather kind of cartoony, especially when you look at the spirit sides for all the samurais. You see that they're a little more cartoony, and I don't mean that cartoony in a bad way, but I mean more like Saturday morning cartoons. Nothing that you're going to be ashamed to have them see. There's no really bad images in the game. It's high fantasy. Kids are going to love looking at the imagery. I think as a family-friendly game, they did a fantastic job here. Kids 7 or up for families, making this a really good family game. Overall, Samurai Spirits is a decent cooperative game. It's not the best cooperative game in the world. It's not even the best cooperative game from this designer. I think Ghost Stories is a better cooperative game. But still, this is a decent cooperative game with multiple difficulty levels. And I can guarantee you the heroic level is going to be very, very challenging for anybody to play, especially when these farmsteads start burning down and start causing you all the problems that's going to happen. Where you're going to have less barricades to protect your samurai in the start of the game. It's going to make the game a heck of a lot more challenging. There's some minor hiccups with the game. Don't play the game with less than 4 samurai. At least that's my suggestion. Of course, you can always do the 2nd edition rulebook suggestion of fixing your player deck. But if you're like me and you have a good memory and you're able to look at exactly what cards are going to be in your player deck, it's definitely going to ruin the challenge for the game because you have a rough idea of what cards are coming out approximately when. I think the best way they should have fixed this game is if you want to play this game with only 2 samurai, they should have removed the villager little tokens and they should replace them with militant farmers. And instead of making them be in a lost condition, just make it so that every time you play the game, if you lose some of these militant farmers who are helping your only 2 samurai, now again this is a suggestion only for the 2 samurai game, every time you lose these militant farmers, they're not going to give you their bonuses at the end of the round, but the game victory is not going to hinge on whether you're able to keep them all alive. Make the game victory hinge completely only on the farmsteads itself, and that way you don't have to try to doctor your raider deck to ensure that you're not going to encounter an impossible game. And not only that, thanks to the higher difficulty levels, you can do that and still keep the game challenging by playing that way on the heroic difficulty level. I think it's actually a much better fix to the game if you want to play with only 2 samurai. But again, my best suggestion, play the game with the rules that come with the box every time, making sure you have at least 4 samurai in every single game. This has been another off-the-shelf board game review looking at Samurai Spirits. Hope you enjoyed this. Make sure you check out the tutorial video, the sample gameplay. Leave comments in the YouTube comments below, and as always, please subscribe. Thanks for watching. Hey everybody, welcome to my final review for Samurai Spirits by FunForge. If you missed the prior 2 videos, including my tutorial and my sample gameplay video, I'm going to go ahead and insert a quick little link here. Cat.